Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am no longer pregnant, so I figured I would hop on here and tell you a little bit about my C-section and how everything went and how I'm doing and how little man is doing. And then at the end, show you I'll insert a couple of pictures of him because I feel like there are so many of you that have watched me from the time I started my IVF journey to my pregnancy, and I just feel like you guys need to see him, in my opinion. Obviously, he's super cute and cuddly and really sweet, and I don't think I told you guys his name because we weren't 100% sure up until maybe a month or so. I'm not really sure, but his name is Fletcher, and I got that name from my favorite show of all time, Wentworth. You can find it on Netflix. I love it. My middle child, Meredith, her middle name is Francesca, and that's also after Wentworth, so I'm a bit extra with the names. But yes, I got the name Fletcher from that show, and then his middle name is Joe, just J-O-E, because of my grandpa Joe. He was just J-O-E. And if any of you guys saw my video, obviously my grandpa passed away this year, and it was really, and has been and still is extremely hard for me. I was a complete and utter grandpa's girl from the time I was born until his last day on earth. And the other thing is, I had my embryo transfer with Fletcher on the day that my grandpa passed away, and I just couldn't believe the odds. I'm like, what are the chances that we would be doing my embryo transfer, getting pregnant on the day that the morning my grandfather passed away? To me, it just seemed like the circle of life completely fulfilled itself. So I don't know. I just, Fletcher Joe. So that is his name, and he was 6 pounds, 4.9 ounces, and he was, I think, 18 inches long on June 15th. And so it was a planned C-section. We knew going into it that it would be, which I had a planned C-section with my second child, Meredith, and I loved it. It was so nice just knowing when to pack, to have your laundry done. I was able to get laundry done and pack my bag, take a nice shower, and go out to dinner, relax, all before we went to the hospital to have my C-section. So that was really nice. So I was okay with a repeat C-section. My first was natural, and let's just say she did a lot of damage, hence the C-sections. But either way, it doesn't really matter how a baby comes into this world. You are strong and a champion, because it is not easy to give birth naturally, and it is not easy to give birth via C-section, because the recovery process is no joke. You're literally getting cut in half, and you have 2 sets of stitches. So if you do that, you're amazing. Don't listen to a lot of the people out there who are gonna say, oh, that's not, giving real birth and yada yada yada. It is, and it's really hard. So kudos to anybody who's having a baby. But anyway, my brother-in-law Edward flew in from New York. He did when I had Meredith as well, so we got to spend a couple days before I had Fletcher with my brother-in-law, which was really nice. My aunt and uncle came in from California. And yeah, I'm just parked at CVS, so I'll finish talking to you guys. But yeah, so we went in on the morning of the 15th pretty early, and they got me hooked up with 2 different IVs. I had to have 2 because I am on a blood thinner, and in my first pregnancy delivery, I hemorrhaged really bad. And so in case of a blood transfusion, they did 2 IVs, so I had 1 on each arm. And the scariest thing that happened while I was in pre-op, my brother-in-law and Richard were sitting there, and the nurse came up and to put the Toco machine around my belly to monitor the baby's heart. And I was talking to her, and she was a really sweet, awesome nurse, and she was very happy, I guess. And so when I saw her face kind of get really serious and was watching the monitors, I was like, is he okay? And she didn't answer me. And I'm like, is he okay? And she goes, yep, let's just turn you on your side. And so I turned on my side, and she still looked kind of concerned. And I'm like, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, the baby, I think he's just laid on his cord. I can't find his heartbeat. And so that was really scary, but it was only for, she's like, I'm going to give it another minute, and if not, we're going in emergency C-section. And it was not even that long before, when I rolled over, that they found his heartbeat, and it was strong, and they watched him. And I had already got my IVs and everything, so I was just waiting for the anesthesiologist to come in to sign my consent forms for the spinal block and all of that. And before I knew it, I was in surgery at, I think it was 9:03. And something that was really, really nice this time around was they allowed Richard to come back to the OR with me to do my spinal block. When I had Meredith, they did not let anybody come back for the spinal, just for like sterile purposes is what they said. And this hospital, I delivered at a different hospital. They said it was completely fine. They find that women are obviously more relaxed when they have their significant other with them. And so I was completely happy, because last time, that's the only time I felt really nervous and kind of just scared, was when I didn't have Richard with me. So this time I was so happy that he was with me. So when we got back there and I got my spinal, I mean, it's just such a crazy like sensation. You get this, shot in your back, and it burns a little bit, but like not anything crazy. And they lay you down, and you just start feeling literally from the tip of your toes up, kind of like a warm, tingly sensation. And it's like, you are dead from like here down. Like, you feel nothing. And it's always so crazy when the surgeon's like, okay, I'm gonna poke you, let me know if you feel this. And like, okay, we're poking pretty hard, I guess we're good to go. And I'm like, that's really crazy. I'm a person that really enjoys like medical stuff, I guess. I like to watch, Grey's and all of those different shows, but I do have a deep respect for doctors and surgeons and nurses and CNAs, anybody that works in that field. I have a deep respect for, because if we didn't have them, it's like we would be in a world of hurt and trouble. And I don't know, I'm fascinated about the human body. So I asked for a clear curtain, which they asked my husband, they're like, are you okay with that? And he's like, yeah, I was an EMT, it's no problem. So I had just a complete clear curtain. So I got to watch literally them start cutting me, and I thought it was really neat. And I told the surgeon, I'm like, it's not every day that you get to see somebody cut you pretty much in half and you don't feel anything. I think it's really neat. And I loved both of the surgeons that I had. They were really, really funny. They had me laughing. And when they pulled them out, she was just like, it's like she sees babies. She delivers babies. She does this day in and day out, but she truly made you feel like she was so excited for you. And I really liked that. So when he came out, I was like, wow, you were so small, you were so tiny. And he was the smallest of all three of my children, height and weight, length, I should say, and weight. He was the smallest. So they took him over, obviously. They showed him to me through the clear curtain, and I was able to, see him for a second. And then they obviously needed to sew me up, so they sent the baby with the nurses. And then Richard went over, and he was crying when he came out. But when she like put his face up close, like he had a bunch of just the fluid running out of his mouth, and his cry was so gurgly and like muffled. And so I'm like, well, he's crying, that's a great sign, but it just sounded really like bubbly and just not good. And so when they took him over to the nurse's station, I could kind of see what was going on. I was glad Richard obviously was with him, but I'm like, okay, last time they brought her over to me pretty quickly, and put her on my chest. But then with Meredith, they were like, okay, we need to go work on her breathing in the NICU. And she and Richard went for like an hour, and everything was good. This time, I'm like, why are they still over there? Like, to me, I don't know if it was the medication or what, it just seemed like a really long time. And I was talking to the anesthesiologist. She was really cool, just trying to keep my cool, not worry too much, and just be calm. And so they brought him over to me finally, and I was able to see him and kiss him, and I'll try to insert a clip of that right here because it was just so special meeting him.
Take this. Real quick. Hi. So he just needs some of that pressure to help open up his lungs with the oxygen. So we're going to take him to the NICU and get him kind of settled in there.
So yeah, at that point though, as you could hear, the nurse was like, we're going to just take him to the NICU to work on some breathing and get some gunk out of his lungs. And so they did that. Richard went with him, and I finished up with surgery, and then they took me to post-op, and my brother-in-law kept me company while Richard was in the NICU with Fletcher. And so it was 4 hours. It was 4 hours post-op that I was able to get up and walk. I knew that if I wanted to go down to the NICU, like, I'm sure they would have wheeled me and whatnot in a wheelchair, but I was like, I need to get my body up and moving as soon as I can. And so once I felt like I gained all of my feeling back, I'm like, I want to get up and I want to get moving. And the nurse was like, wow, you literally had surgery 4 hours ago. Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. She's like, wow, you're killing it. So I started walking and whatnot, and it took a long time, like from my room all the way down. Like it was a long walk to the NICU. It took me a really long time, but I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. I pushed a wheelchair just to lean on it, and I walked down to the NICU so I could be with Fletcher. And the NICU doctor said that he had transitional breathing issues, so just that he didn't know he was going to be born that day. And a lot of times when you have a vaginal birth, like, the pressure of the push gets a lot of that stuff out, and C-section babies don't have that push, so oftentimes they have a lot of fluid and gunk still stuck in there. So they had like a little mask on him, and he was just so tiny. But he was in the NICU for a day, and then they said, okay, he can go back to the room with you if he passes the car seat test. And I'm like, okay, what is the car seat test? And they said that he would have to be completely off of oxygen, but completely monitored while sitting in his car seat, buckled in, for 90 minutes, and his oxygen could not dip at all. And so I'm like, cool, let's do this. And so we put him in his car seat, and they hooked him up to, monitor him, and he was dipping like a couple of good times, some really good dips. And so he failed. And so he was in the NICU again for another night. And it was like 3 a.m. when they said that he could redo the car seat test, because it has to be like a period of time before you can redo the test. And I was so anxious about it. I remember Richard was sleeping in the room with me, and I woke up at like 2, full energy. I went for a walk to visit him, and she said, we'll start in about an hour. So I went back to the room to shower, and then I went back for his car seat test, and I just sat there and was playing on my phone and waiting, and he did pass. So that was really good. He was able to come back to the room with me, and we were in my hospital room for maybe like another, I don't know, 6 hours, probably 7 hours. And then we were discharged, and we got to go home. So all in all, he was healthy. He needed a little bit of boost with his oxygen, which is totally fine. I'm grateful that those doctors and nurses knew what they were doing, and I am doing really well. If you're gonna have a C-section, it does suck. It hurts, but get up and walk, and like hold a pillow against your belly if you have to cough, sneeze, what have you, and keep up with stool softeners. That's all I'm gonna say. And Tylenol. That way you aren't miserable. But yeah, that was my C-section experience. My last baby. It was really sentimental and sweet, and I'm just crazy in love with him, but I wanted to at least update you guys on that. So yeah, I will insert a couple of pictures of him here now, but thank you so much for being with me, especially if you have started on this journey. When I started IVF, thank you for, watching this far along. I really, really am grateful. I appreciate it, and just thank you. And if you like my channel or my video, you should check out some other ones to decide if you want to, subscribe, but you should give this video a thumbs up for little Fletcher, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.